are Lauren Wright, NewsNation political contributor, associate research scholar, and lecturer in politics and public affairs at Princeton University. Lauren, great to see you. Let's start with Harris's first interview last night. You and I have talked about this for weeks. We were waiting for this interview.
Right.
Here's what she said when asked about changing her stance on policies like fracking.
We have set goals for the United States of America and, by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed.
I have to ask, Lauren, what do you think of her answer? Does that help answer Republicans' charge that she's a flip-flopper?
No, it's a really tough answer to be successful at if you've changed your opinion recently, and she has in the past 4 years. And so voters are unsatisfied with that because they think, well, didn't you just do this last time around? How should I trust that you're not just lying to me now out of political expediency? But it is very hard to defend such a drastic change in position. The 2020 Democratic candidates who wanted to ban fracking, including Harris, cited that they really thought it hurt the environment. They think it creates a ton of wastewater that we can't do anything with. They think it creates greenhouse gases. It ruins the local ecosystem. These are all well-trodden progressive arguments that there's some dispute on, but either Harris changed her mind on the underlying science that progressives cite with the harm of fracking, or she realizes it's harmful to jobs and doesn't want to take the hit in that way. So maybe a more forthright answer would have been, I still think it harms the environment, but I'm not willing to give up the jobs in the local area. But that's a tough ask for any politician, and that's what she is.
Let's dive more into that interview, Lauren. Harris was also asked about Trump's attacks over her race and her gender. Here's a little bit more of what she said on that.
He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any
same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
All right. What's the strategy there? What do you think of that approach you just took?
That was an excellent answer. It might have been her best response of the entire interview, because Trump's highly personal questions about her racial background are so outlandish that they should stand on her own, and she should just leave them right there where they are. You know, his attacks on her in that way, if you can call them attacks, really alienate him even from this conservative message. Conservatives want to downplay race and gender as obstacles, as barriers to outcomes. And he's going in the complete opposite direction. It's harmful to the conservative message, but she dealt with that exactly correctly. Just let it be where it is. Play it over and over again.
Let's talk about her running mate. Walz was asked about that viral moment of his son at the DNC last week. Here's what he had to say about that.
To have my son feel a sense of pride in me, that I was trying to do the right thing. And it was, you try and protect your kids, it brings notoriety and things, but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him.
There's been a lot of talk about the type of masculinity Walz represents. I actually hate that word, but that is what's being thrown around. Yes. So that's the reason I'm posing it to you. Do you think that appeals to voters?
I saw attacks from the right on Walz's son when he was crying when his dad was on stage. I can't imagine a less appealing message. I don't know why you would do that. It's sort of a longstanding tradition not to attack the children of presidential candidates. That doesn't earn them any points. And so he probably, if there was any persuasion effect, brought a few more people in the fold. Anyone who shows a very relatable love for their family, love for their kids, that's stuff that brings people in, doesn't push them away.
I agree with you. Let's bring in Frank Sesno, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Professor at the School of Media and Public Affairs at George Washington University. Great to see you, Frank. So this new question is for you, this next question, I should say. New Bloomberg polling gives Walz a slight edge over J.D. Vance, at least when it comes to favorability. I mean, it is slight if you take a look at those numbers, 40 versus 37%. Do you think when we compare these numbers for Trump and Vance that this is going to change moving forward? I expected the number to be a little bit more distant because of seeing Walz's son last week at the DNC.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, if there's going to be a bump, there's going to be the surprise bump because, oh my gosh, I just met the guy, I like him or I don't, and does that reflect itself in the numbers? But I think what we have to remember and really keep in mind here is that the vast majority of this electorate is pretty well set. And they know what they're going to do. They've known for a long time. It doesn't much matter what you say about one side or the other. It's that sliver. The people that we're talking about who are the important players here are those who might have stayed home otherwise and now might be cajoled, convinced, or excited enough to show up to vote. That could tip the difference. It's the sliver of people who maybe voted for Obama and then flipped and voted for Trump and might come home again, or some of the younger and or people of color who Trump seems to be appealing to more this time than last. So it's a very small slice. So while the numbers for Walz didn't leap coming out of the convention, they didn't leap for Harris either. Sure. These small moves are nonetheless very significant. And I think it's the trends that we need to be watching now, and this kind of excitement level, because that's what translates into the get out the vote work that's really being done.
Let's go back to Trump. He's addressing Moms for Liberty tonight. They're that group behind a lot of the culture war battles we've seen playing out in schools across the country. Is that a risk for Trump? Could he turn off those undecided voters, Lauren?
Probably not. For the same reason my fellow panelists just stated, a lot of people are really set in their decisions. And so the calculation Trump is making, and I don't think it's a bad one, is this is a group of moms who really sides with me on these issues that get them very excited and very motivated. And we just need to keep them engaged until the election. And we just need to get them to talk to as many of their like-minded friends as possible and get them to election. So this is not an event that's going to shift opinion. It's an event that's going to reassure the people who are already going to vote for you that you're on board with them and you are completely in lockstep on the message.
Frank, your thoughts? Is there any downside to appearing with Moms for Liberty?
Look, there's always a downside to something, but the question is, how down is the side? Because Donald Trump says the things that Donald Trump says, right? So does anybody care about do any of his voters abandon him because of what happened at Arlington National Cemetery and the flap over that? Do any of his voters abandon him because of what he says for Moms for Liberty? I think the dynamic to watch is not what is the downside for him in anything he does, but maybe think of it this way. What is the upside for Harris? It's all about Harris, Walz getting their people or the reluctant people out to vote, as I say, or for Trump to continue to keep his base motivated so they go out. So for Trump to keep the base motivated, he just has to keep being Trump. And there's almost nothing he can do that's going to, at this point, turn that crowd off. They know what he is. They take literally what they feel they need to take literally, and they kind of shrug off the rest. I think the downside for him with the Moms for Liberty is, does he say something else? Is there another sort of J.D. Vance type cat ladies comment that then the Harris people can use to motivate their side? That's where I think the dynamic is, and where this race is, especially in these swing states where poll after poll after poll shows this within the margin of error of a dead heat. That's where it's going to matter.
Lauren, Trump now saying he wants to make IVF free, though he's not saying how he's going to do it. Let's take a look at that.
And what we're going to do is, for people that are using IVF, which is fertilization, the government is going to pay for it, or we're going to get or mandate your insurance company to pay for it, which is going to be great.
So here at NewsNation, we broke down the numbers. If this does happen, it's over $11 billion annually. Numbers aside, Lauren, could that help him make up his deficit with those women voters at all?
Really hard to tell, but I think it's a very smart move. It's not in line with traditional conservatism. Generally, conservatives want to keep the government from paying for additional programs, and they've stayed very far away from this and have actually expressed doubt about whether embryos are people and said all kinds of controversial things. So very smart politically to move away from that and try not to alienate swing voters with this stuff. Whether I think it'll come to fruition, how much it'll cost, I have a lot of doubts about that. From a messaging standpoint, I do understand it.
Lauren
Could I
Wright.
jump in on-
Yes,
could I
please
jump in
do.
on that?
Yes, Frank, go ahead.
It's really, you asked about the downside on the other. This is actually a place where there may be a downside for Trump with some of his base, because with some of what he's saying, also with respect to the vote in Florida over abortion rights, what's on the ballot,
Yep.
does Trump alienate the very firm pro-life crowd? Or do they say, look, we get what he's doing. He's playing to the swing voters that you were just talking about. We get that. This is politics. Let's take him. Let's look at his record, those 3 justices that helped overturn Roe v. Wade, so we don't care. But there is some pushback within the conservative movement about where Trump is or has been recently with respect to abortion and reproductive rights. And of course, Harris is trying to make this a key part of her campaign. But if he can, as he's doing, bring this in just enough to blunt it a little bit politically for him, it may work.
All right. Well, 68 days until Election Day. Lauren Wright, Frank Zazo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And still